Hi, my name's Zara and welcome back to my channel. I've had some time off whilst I finished my degree, but this week I'm back with an upcycle that I've wanted to do for a while, and that's turning this dress into a jumpsuit. I love the beaded detailing along the neckline and is something I wouldn't usually go for when picking out clothes, so I'm excited to work with that and see how it turns out. So let's get to it. There was a small amount of shirring in the waist section of my dress, just two sort of odd little squares, so I started by removing that, and then because it was so crinkled I also just ran an iron over there to get rid of the crinkles. I started by cutting out my shorts using a pair of shorts that I like the fit of. Something that I'd wish I'd done at this point was to make the shorts higher so they fitted better around the waist rather than being a pair of lower rise shorts. To complete the shorts, I sewed along the leg seams, then I placed them together, right sides touching, and sewed around the curved seam, so they became a pair of shorts. Moving on to the top of the jumpsuit, I removed the sleeves to start with, and then I folded the top in half to find the halfway point at the back. I needed to be able to get the neck hole over the widest part of my hips as I stepped into my jumpsuit in the end, so I cut a thin V down the halfway point on the back, which was about 10 centimeters in the end, which would become a small keyhole detail once I'd finished. I just kept snipping until I could comfortably get it over my hips. To give my buttonhole a clean finish, I created a facing. Using a scrap piece of fabric, I placed this over the split that I'd made and then cut out the same shape. I placed this facing then right sides together on top of the fabric. Before sewing it in place, I decided to create a little button loop instead of making a buttonhole, so I cut a small strip of fabric and folded the long edges into the centre, and then folded this in half lengthways again and sewed straight along that edge. To work out how big I needed my little loop to be, I folded it in half and then just measured it against the button, making sure it would be able to fit through. I then pinned this between the facing and the top, and I was ready to sew it all in place. Once I'd sewn, I made some tiny snips where I'd created a slight curve and then pulled the facing through so it now had wrong sides that were touching together. I then pinned this in place and top stitched along the edge to secure everything in place and seal the raw edges under the facing. To finish off this facing, I hand stitched along the two tops of where the facing met the front of the top, and then I sewed my button in place. I measured the width of my shorts and then used this measurement to be the width that went down the body of the top, as it was the right measurement to be able to get over my hips when I stepped into the jumpsuit. I also measured from my shoulder down to just below my waist and cut off the excess. and then sewed in the new side seams as well. Using the excess fabric, I created 2 lengths that were going to be for the waistband, and I had enough fabric for 2 extra triangles to try and create some tabs. This is an idea that I saw Hannah Lee Duggan do as a way to cinch in the waistline, so I'll link her video below. I created my tabs by folding the small rectangles in half and then sewing down the sides. From here, I turned them inside out and pushed the corners out, and then top stitched around the 3 closed sides. In these little tabs, I'll have 2 buttonholes on them. To create these, I measured out the size of my button using the button foot, then marked out the location I wanted my buttonholes to be on my tabs. I lined up the marks that I'd made with the buttonhole foot, and using the settings on my machine, I stitched these in place. I finally used an unpicker to slice through the middle of the buttonhole. I always like to just double check my button fits through the buttonhole before moving on to the next one. To put these tabs in place, I opened up the side seams of my top and then pinned them to where the top hit my waist. This is one of the reasons that I wish my shorts had been a bit higher, as this would have been then attached into the waistband rather than onto the top, and the pleats that these little tabs create would have looked a bit nicer. But after inserting those tabs, I then sewed the side seams back and secured them in place. Before moving on to attaching the shorts, I decided to sew on some sleeves. I used my scissors to smooth out the armhole curves, and then taking inspiration from another dress that I have, I wanted to create these sleeves that had big ruffles and that only cover the top half of your shoulder. I cut out 2 long rectangles and folded them in half lengthways. I then pinned and sewed curves at either end of my rectangles to give them a soft finish. Once I turned them inside out, I then decided to carefully top stitch as close to the edge as I could along the curve, the straight length and the curve on the other side. I sewed a basting stitch along the raw edge of the sleeve to create the ruffles. I ruffled my sleeve up to about 30 centimetres, which was a length that worked really well for me. I found the centre of my sleeve and then I matched it to the top centre of the shoulder seam that I had, and then pinned these right sides together in place. I sewed this in place and then I hemmed the whole inside of the sleeve by tucking it over and sewing a rolled hem. Moving back to the shorts, I used those 2 waistband pieces from earlier and I attached them to the shorts. I then turned the shorts inside out and slotted the top matching up the side seams inside the shorts, so I had right sides touching, and then sewed all the way around the waist and the bottom of the top to secure it all in place. I finished off the jumpsuit by attaching the buttons for my tabs. So the idea of these tabs is to cinch the waist back in once the jumpsuit is on. This has been a slightly longer video, so thank you for sticking around until now, but here's the final look. I'm really impressed that I've managed to make this transformation work, especially after not sewing for a couple of months. I really love the button detailing inspired by Hannah, as I mentioned before, so I'll make sure to link her video down below. This is a super cute summery outfit and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video. Bye!